Kia ora, Helen Brumsey, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Yes, I am late. I apologize. I had to do an emergency run for dog food because I thought I was only halfway through Zephy's dog food. It turned out we were at the end of it. So we had to do a mad dash to PetSmart to pick some up. And so we just got back. Had our walk, did a dash to the PetSmart, came back, and she's all good now. She has her food. So I'm going to be spending some time mixing it up into the container we keep it in. But anyway, how are you all? It has been a super fantastic, sparkling day. We had day one of the Leverage Conference, which was awesome. I have to tell you, the caliber of the speakers we have at this thing is just amazing. We got to hear how to communicate with different generations and what is, do you know there's actually 5 generations right now? I'm going to see if I can, where's my notebook? I remember when I wrote them down. I took pages of notes. Let's get back here. La, 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 la. So you've got the greatest generation / veteran / World War II that were born before 1940. And then there's the baby boomers who were born between 1940 and 1960. And yes, there are variations on these. Dates, Gen X, which is 1960 to 1980, Gen Y, otherwise known as millennials, from 1980 to 2000, and Gen Zs from 2000 to 2020. If you notice, there's about a 20-year gap between each generation, which is about what a generation is. But what we did is that we learned about what had happened, what major events that occurred between when they were 8 to 18, because that's our most impressionable years is 8 to 18, and the events that happened during that time and how we react to them and that sort of thing. And it was kind of interesting because I'm kind of thinking, okay, what events took place between my ages of 8 and 18, remembering that I was in New Zealand at the time, so I didn't know a lot of what was going on in America unless I watched the news. So yeah, it was kind of interesting listening to that. And when they brought up the list, some of them I remembered, and some of them I had no clue on. So it's kind of interesting. It was interesting learning about that. But there's also different ways of communication, and what was really cool is that the speaker took a very common product and showed us how to market it to each generation with the language that we use. And I'm just like, this is brilliant. And then I'm like thinking, okay, I can work with this with genealogy. Because how do you talk to, you've got to put things in, when you're talking to the greatest generation, if you've got people who were born before 1940 in your family that are still around, and you're wanting to get their story out of them, remember, they are homebodies. They are very patriotic, very, very military orientated during that time because, they had, what did they have during there? Don't have the full list, but they had things like Pearl Harbor, the Korean War, World War II, Social Security came into effect during that time. They had the flu epidemic. And I can't remember what else. That's what I got written. But they were saying that, military and patriotism was very much a big part of their life during that time. And so when you're talking to them, you have to take that into account. They're very much family orientated as well. And it was really interesting just how you talk to them to get the information out of them. If you're like a millennial who's like, come on, I want that information now. It's like, no. You're going to have to slow it down, be patient, let them talk, because all they want to do is tell their story. So when you're talking to that greatest generation, those before 1940, slow it down, allow them give them the patience so that you can listen and really pay attention. Get out of that now mindset that millennials have, because we figured out that was the biggest one was the millennials that want everything now, and just take time with them to listen. All they want right now is just somebody to listen to their stories, and they're happy. Some of them are happy to talk about it. Some of them may not because it had such an effect on their lives. Especially those that served and saw action and that sort of thing and saw friends being killed and that sort of stuff while fighting and all that. They may be a little more closed off. Others might be, I got to tell my story. So give them a chance to do that. Don't worry about how you like to be communicated with. meet them where they like to be communicated with, and just sit and listen with them. And I know for some people that's going to be hard, especially if you have one of these things. Um, but it was just very interesting. And I thought, okay, so, when I talk to that generation, it's just sit back and listen and let them talk, which is something I got taught to do as a child, was, listen to your elders. And I loved listening to the stories that my grandparents would tell us, whether it was when they were, well, my grandfather didn't talk about his time in the war because it was a very traumatic experience for him. But he regaled us with other stories. He made up fairy tales. He would start off with a regular fairy tale like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Cinderella, Hansel and Gretel, and they did not finish how we know them. He would get them they would run parallel to a point. The fairy tale would go this direction. My grandfather would go this direction. He had a very great imagination, was very creative with his storytelling, and I absolutely loved and adored him for that. And I loved listening to his stories. But he would not talk about his war experiences. My grandmother, on the other hand, she wouldn't shut up about the war stories that she had. And she fought she didn't fight. She served during World War II in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. And they were basically based in New Zealand and on the Air Force bases. And they kept things running while the guys were off overseas fighting and all of that sort of stuff. Some of them were mechanics and learned how to fix airplanes. Some of them were aircraft mechanics. Some of them were motor vehicle, worked in the motor pool and maintained all the vehicles there. They were there as support for the Royal New Zealand Air Force, and provided whatever support was needed so the men could go off and fight. And so then as you move through different generations, there's different ways of communicating and finding out what the preferred method of communication is for the people that you want to talk to, and meeting them where they're at and meeting them in how they want to communicate. So that was a really cool. That was one of my biggest takeaways from that presentation about learning how to talk to different generations. And when you're within your own generation, you got that one down pat. It's not a problem. You communicate the same way. It's okay. But when you're talking to different generations, there's a different level of communication. We also heard about, what else did we hear about? About achieving for your business, about achievements for your business and things like that. Then came one of my favorite talks. So this was my second favorite talk. The first one was on talking to generations. My second favorite talk for today was telling your story. And you all know, if you've been following me for the last, we're on podcast, we're before the Dirt Nap podcast, on podcast number 1198. Sorry. It's a little upset in the routine. It's okay. We just go with the flow. This one was, and if you've been following me for the last 3 years and 102 days, then you will know that I am a big believer in that we need to tell our story. And through this demonstration, this presentation today, it was very different. And yes, there is about writing your story, but there's also, you can talk your story and record the story. You can record it on video. You can record it on just the voice, just the audio track. You can also sing your story, write songs about your stories, dance to your stories, dance out your stories. There was just so many ways of communicating your story. I'm like, I'd never thought of that before. Photo essays. If you're into photography, do a photo essay. Things like scrapbooking and painting and exploring nature are all ways of telling your story. And it was just like poetry was another way you can tell your story, is through poetry. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had never thought, because me tell story equals writing it out in journals, maybe publishing the journals into a book, doing the recordings of the story, whether it's on video or just on audio. That was my way of telling a story. But then I got my eyes opened up that, if you love music, tell your story through music. If you love to write, if you're a songwriter, tell your story through songwriting. And I was just like, I never thought of that before. If you're into scrapbooking, you can tell stories through scrapbooking. you've got the photographs there. You write the story that goes with the photographs. You can just be brief with it. You can be long with it. It doesn't matter. It's your way. It's your how. It's how you do it. And doing things like photo essays to tell your story. I'm just sort of like, huh. So I had a big aha moment today with those as well. Another one that we got, another speaker we had, talked about your dream and creating your landscape for your life and your business, and that was really cool too. There was, it's about building it, having that dream and following it, having it visual, reimagining your life. And we heard a lot about the metaverse, and I've got to go check out this metaverse thing because I wanted to go to the presentation that they had last night as the third bonus night. But I got tied up and wasn't able to make it on there. But apparently it was really, really, really good. And so I'm going to go learn more about that. Another good talk that we had, and back on one of the podcasts I did earlier, I actually had Brandon Barnum on, and we were talking about the bank code for a personality type, communication type. Today we had somebody else talking about the bank code in a different way than what Brandon explained it to us on an earlier podcast. And I got it more this time. Every time I hear different people talking about the bank code, I always pick up new stuff, and it gives me a bigger picture on how, gives me more clues on how to clue into what their strongest bank code is, what their strongest is. Mine is N for nurture, then I'm A for action, K for knowledge, and B for blueprint. And so it was also learning how to tap into those ones that you're not as strong in, but what it means to communicate. Like, I was a nurturer and action taker. Brad, I know he would have been a blueprint. He wanted a plan. He did not like doing things spontaneously. I'll go and go, let's go for a drive. He goes, where are we going? I don't know. We'll just make it up as we go along. He's like, where are we going? I go, I don't know. And it would annoy him that I just wanted to get in the car and go for a drive. Well, let's go north on the Pacific Coast Highway. Well, how far north are we going? I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go along. Maybe we'll stop and have lunch along the way. And, I'm just sort of like making it up as I go along. And he was like, he wanted the plan. Where are we going? What are we doing? Let's just make it up as we go along. Opposite ends of the spectrum. So he was very much a blueprint, and I was very much the nurture. Action was right there because I was doing a lot of spontaneous things, as well as, the nurturing side was taking care of him, getting him out of the house, doing something different that we normally did, and just taking care of our mental health to get out of the house and get that break from the house, especially when it became when we were becoming more housebound based on his mobility issues and stuff. And we'll get in the car and drive. And then, one day he completely surprised me, but he did plan this. Because I said, because we went to go to his doctor's appointment, and I said to him, I said, well, after the doctor's appointment, let's go out for lunch on the way. We'll go for lunch on the way home. He's like, okay, where do you want to go? I says, I don't know. I says, you're taking care of that. So when we're in the doctor's office, when we're in the waiting room, I'm sitting there reading, and he's on his phone playing around like he normally does. And he must have been planning where we were going, because when we finally, and then he was on the phone there again and zipping all around on there and tapping and all that sort of stuff. I would just sit there and read. And so when we finally got in the car afterwards, I was driving. And because he was at the stage where because of his mobility and stuff, it was very uncomfortable for him to drive. And so I said, well, where are we going? He says, oh, you'll find out. And I'm just like, awesome, road trip. And so he takes me on this long circular route, and it takes us like an hour and a half to get to where we finally ended up was Julian. And Julian is known for apples and apple pies. And if you've never been to Julian, it's northeast of San Diego, east of San Diego. It's down near San Diego. And so he takes me, and I'm like, where are we going? We're going on these hills. We're going down and through these tree roads, and tree roads are the ones that are lined with trees. So you got the tree tunnels. We're winding through these narrow country back roads and all that. And I'm like, where are we going? He goes, and he's sitting there with his phone. He goes, oh, we're almost there. Yep. And you need to take a turn here. He was taking me away where there was absolutely no signage as to where we were going. It was back roads the whole way. It took us 30 minutes to get home afterwards. I said, why didn't we come the short? Because I didn't want you to know where we were going. He planned it. He planned it. I told him what he needed to do. He went off and he sat the whole time with the doctor's appointment and everything when we were in the waiting room, when we were waiting for the doctor to come into the office. He's sitting there planning our lunch, where we're going for lunch. Me, I would have been, let's just go for a drive over here and we'll find somewhere to eat along the way. Yeah, no, he sat there and he planned it. That's the blueprint of him. Me, yeah, I would have said, well, let's just go for a drive this way and see what we find. You know? So it was interesting learning more about those different things and how we use them. So that was really cool too. Then we got to hear after that, we did an author spotlight. So there were some people there who had written books, and Deborah just sat there and just interviewed them and asked them questions about their book and where they got the ideas from and what got them started in writing. And, if it was their first book, why did they decide to write a book? Things like that. So it was very interesting learning from these authors and things, from these authors about what they had done and what their book was about and that sort of information as well. So it was a really, really good first day. I got to the end of it and I thought, I am not drained. I was not drained on my energy, which was awesome. I did get one patch where I was a little tired. So in the next break, I took my Metaparo Advantage, which is the collagen thingy, which helps spark the brain and that sort of stuff, helps with mental clarity and that sort of thing. And I had my breathe here to help me wake up, but I realized I didn't have any peppermint, so I got to make sure I keep peppermint here for tomorrow. But every time we had a break, I got up, I walked around. During the lunch break, I took Zeffie for a walk. We just walked around the block and came back again. We ended up with like 30 minutes for lunch, so I thought I'll take her for a quick walk. Gets me outside. It was beautiful outside today. It was gorgeous. It got to I think our high today got to be like 68 with our high. And at one point, like around lunchtime, it was like 64, 65 when we went out for our walk. And it was a great walk. It was a beautiful day. There was a heavy breeze blowing. It was enough that I couldn't put the awning out because it was sort of like at the minimum, but there were gusts expected. And I'm glad I didn't put the awning out because not long after we sat back down, we got rocked with a gust of wind. I'm like, well, I'm glad the awning's not out. But it meant I could concentrate more too on what was happening at the thing. So it was a really, really good day. And I got 2 days left. And tomorrow I actually get to do my presentation, which is why it is important to know your genealogy for business. And I got all these notes running around in my head, so I will be spending some time tonight to jot down more of those notes. And because I got a loose presentation done, so I just need to finalize my bullet points that I'm going to talk about. And I will work on that this evening. Last night we watched The Man with the Golden Gun, and the question we had for you guys is, what was the golden gun made out of? Now, Scaramanga had this, and like I said, he could get on a plane or anything, and except I suddenly thought the lighter, he would not be allowed on with the lighter. But he had a fountain pen, a lighter, his cigarette case, and a cufflink is what he used to make up the gun. The fountain pen became the barrel. The cigarette case was the handle. The cigarette lighter was the bullet chamber, and the cufflink was the trigger. And that's how he made up his gun. And he'd lay the things just sitting there on the thing, a cigarette case with a lighter sitting on top of it, a fountain pen sitting next to it, and he'd just pull the things down into his lap and come up with a gun in his hand. So that was quite an interesting way to make a gun. I thought, very interesting. And one of the things I like about The Man with the Golden Gun is in To Live and Let Die, you meet J.P. Pepper, who is the sheriff of the parish where they're doing all the big boat chases and things through there. And you get to meet him in Live and Let Die. And he's like one of the I am the sheriff. I'm taking charge, even though you got state troopers there. This is my parish. And he wasn't letting the state troopers have it, even though they've been chased out from other counties into this parish and all this sort of stuff in Louisiana. And he made us, and you're sitting there, and the first time I watched The Man with the Golden Gun, I'm like, hang on. He was in the movie, he was in Live and Let Die. And they brought back J.P. Pepper, the sheriff of this little parish in Louisiana, and brought him back. And he was on holiday in, oh, hang on, where were they? Bangkok? Where were they? Hong Kong. Bangkok. Oh, darn it. I can't remember. But they also do one of the most amazing stunts that have ever been done in a James Bond movie. And that is, and James Bond ends up in the car with J.P. Pepper, and he looks at him and he goes, "You're that English spy from England." And he looks at him and goes, "I sure am." So he was there as a little comic relief. And they also had Britt Eklund. Yeah, she was she worked for the for MI5, and she was sort of like a comic relief thing in there too. She was her character was really cool. So this was more of a drama comedy. I think this is one of the ones that's the funniest. But they have the best stunt in there. And what they do is that they're driving along the road and they've got to get to the other side of the river, and there's no bridge. The bridge is like 2 miles back behind them. And he sees this broken bridge, and it comes up and it corks and it turns slightly. So instead of being a straight bridge, it had a turn on it. And on the other side of the river was the same setup, but turning the opposite way. And so what they did with this is that they actually specially built these bridges for this. The stunt guy gets in the car and they got it in one take. And then they said, "Oh, we need to do it again." And he's like, "No, you got it. We're done. Not doing it again." But basically he hits the ramp, corkscrews and spins the car around and lands on the other bridge. So it's almost like think of a corkscrew on a roller coaster with a piece missing. And he goes from one piece of that corkscrew to the other piece of the corkscrew by flipping the car around as he does that. And it was a brilliant stunt. They got it done on one take, and the driver was like, "I ain't doing that again." And I'm like, I don't blame you, because it had never been done before. They weren't sure if it was going to work. So there was a lot of risk taken for this thing, but I have to tell you, it was. And if you get the special features for that movie, for Man with the Golden Gun, they go into a lot of detail on how they came up with the concept, how it was executed, what some of the safety things that they had to have in place, and all of that. And then the stunt driver, he did it in one take and says, "I'm not doing that again." He says, "You got it?" They said, "Yep, good. I'm not doing it again." I don't know what they would have done if they said nope. Because he was like, "I'm done. I'm not doing that again." But yeah, it's one of the best James Bond stunts ever. I'm trying to think of all the other stunts that he's done. Yeah, that's right up there at the top as one of the best ones. And this movie was made in 1974. Yeah, 1974. It was made in I'm pretty sure it was 1974. 1971. Yeah, 1974. And so tonight's one that we're watching is what am I watching? Oh, The Spy Who Loves Me. The Spy Who Loves Me. I like this one too. You got ships that eat submarines. It's and you get to meet one of the henchmen. So who is the famous henchman that you meet in this movie is the question of the night. Who is the henchman that we meet, and what is unique about him? That's your question for tonight with The Spy Who Loved Me. So you've got a Russian spy put with James Bond, and the two of them together are trying to figure out why these submarines are missing. They go missing. They have no clue as to what's happening, but they work together to figure it out. And we get to meet this very interesting henchman. So who do we meet? What is unique about him? That's your question for tonight. But that's it. I'm out of here. I got to go get a DOG, her TREATs. She's busy watching me. She's got her head turned and she's looking at me like, "What you doing? Are you finished yet? You done? I want my treats." She has a little routine. It's really funny. And there's this little park model. It's really cute, and it's actually up for sale. And I had a look at it. And thought, "Oh yeah, maybe, don't know." I keep going backwards and forwards with it. this puppy, usually when we go out for a lunch walk, she takes a right, what she did today. Then we get to the corner and she takes a right, and then we take the next right, and then we take the next right, and we come back around doing the right. No, today she goes left, goes to the next street where this little yellow cottage is, and walks us past there. Last night when we came home, and when we're out walking, now I give her free rein where we go in the evenings, unless she's trying to get out of the pet area of the camp of the resort. Then it's like, no, we can't go that way. And she normally goes straight across. When we come along this one street, she goes straight across and then comes up and around. No, this time she comes across the street, gets to the main road. We go across that, then she comes up one, and then she takes us and walks us past this yellow cottage, and she goes to walk up the steps. I go, you're not going up there. The one for sale. So she said last night she walks us past there and tries to go up the steps onto the front porch. I said, like, that's not our place. And then today when we went for our walk at lunchtime, she kept doing these left turns. So I told her it's going to be a quick walk. And usually when I do a quick walk, she goes right. And then she knows we go right. But today we went right and then we went left all the way around to get back here again. And she couldn't get near the cottage this time because the landscapers have been there doing some work. And they were busy cleaning up. So she didn't get to go on the porch. But she looked at it as we went past. She looked at it. And then tonight when walking, she does the same route she did last night. But she didn't attempt to go up the stairs. She slows down and she just looks as we go past. I'm like, okay, I get the message. I will call. I'm not really looking for a place now, but I'll give it a call. We'll go for a walk through, see what it's like, and that sort of thing too. But anyway, I'm out of here. I got to go get a presentation ready for tomorrow. Just firm up my notes a little bit. I'll probably change it first thing in the morning. And I got some study in this morning as well. I've got a little hour window that I did some study this morning, and lesson 1 has to be completed. They've given us the thing that says lesson for module 2. Lesson 1 is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then lesson 2 is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday was lesson 1, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday for lesson 2. And I'm like, we're going to have fun fitting that in. But I got some study done today, and we're on target to get. I'm not going to get lesson 1 finished today because I'm just exhausted. I'm brain fried right now. But and I've got a presentation to finish up for tomorrow, and then I get to watch The Spy Who Loved Me. Although I might end up doing some more study. I don't know yet. Who knows? I might change my mind. But anyway, I have done enough study to earn my reward of watching a James Bond movie tonight. So anyway, I'm out of here. Go have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow I actually think I'm going to be a little later tomorrow because I think we go a little longer. Where'd my calendar go? Oh, today. Nope. We'll be back for 6 p.m. Pacific tomorrow evening. Hei konera. Oh, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. Hei konera.